千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Daodejing by Lao Zi. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now. To be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process of the Tao. So let's talk about the deeper levels of meaning when it comes to this metaphor of cooking a small fish. To figure it out, we have to understand where Lao Tzu's head was at. He never intended to provide instructions on how to properly cook fish, small or otherwise. It is not intended to convey that Lao Tzu enjoys eating fish. That's got nothing to do with it. What he wanted to do was to use a metaphor that everybody could understand, something that was as basic as possible. When you see that, when you understand that, you can extend the metaphor to make it more general. What if you say, well, I don't like fish, so this example doesn't resonate with me? Well, that's okay. If you extend it, make it more general, it would simply be about using cooking as a metaphor for life. So we ourselves in Western culture use it quite a bit. We say things like, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. We're not literally talking about cooking. We're using that to talk about all kinds of stuff. Like, if you can't take the pressure, then don't put yourself in that situation that's really tense. May have nothing to do with cooking at all. Therefore, approach in understanding the deeper level is to extend and expand to understand the greater meaning, the greater perspective. So rather than just, cooking a small fish, extend it beyond, it's just cooking food. And let's go beyond ruling the empire. What Lao Tzu wanted to say with ruling the empire or the country or nation was simply ruling your life, how to run your life, how to live your life properly. So then we can have the Tao of living. There is an art to the Tao of living. And when you have artistic flair for cooking, you've got fine cuisine, you've got gourmet chefs. This right here then is the extended version of the metaphorical language that we have seen already. And once again, we can outline 5 areas of correspondence to go from one to the other, using the metaphor to increase our understanding from one subject to the next. So to start out, approach to fine cuisine. What do I mean by that? Well, what you get out of it, what you get at the end of your cooking effort, it depends on the effort that you put into it. It depends on whether or not you plan it out, what the idea is, what are the ingredients available on hand, and the skill that you can apply. So your results depends on how you go about it. It can be something that's very sloppy. I'm really hungry right now. I just want something that's edible. It can be quick and sloppy. Or it can be carefully thought out, carefully planned, and cooked with a lot of skill. It can be gourmet. So what about life? Okay, I think you can see exactly how we apply one to the other. What you get out of life depends on what you put into it. What is the effort? What are the tools and the ingredients and the skills that you bring to bear when it comes to living life? You can see a lot of correspondence between the two. Let's talk about preparation. How do we prepare to cook food? Well, it can be very helpful to talk to someone who has done it before. It can be helpful to consult with an experienced cook or follow a recipe. And the recipe can serve as a reference. You can get ideas from it. It can suggest ways that you can combine some of your ingredients. So these all go into the preparation of cooking. What about life? Well, there are many things that we want to do in life. How do we prepare for those? Well, it can be very helpful to have some kind of plan, to maybe talk to someone who's done it before. When it comes to the art of living life, it can be very helpful to have the guidance of the ancient sages who had already figured it out. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, you want to at least have a clear idea about what you're trying to accomplish in life, as in cooking. So once again, a lot of correspondence between the two. What about the tools? Well, when it comes to cooking, you know, you've got to have knives to cut up your ingredients, pans, pots, grills, spatula. The number of tools, possible tools, just go on, and you want to be using the appropriate tools for the meal that you have in mind, for what you want to prepare, what you want to cook. What about life? What about the tools that we employ, that we utilize in life? Well, it's the same idea. You've got to use the right tools for the right jobs. Horses for courses. You have to apply correctly, and sometimes you don't get really good results only because you are not using the best possible tools that's available to you. So again, we can learn from one to the other. We can begin to see when the ancient sages talked about cooking a small fish, they had in mind a much broader scope. And they're hoping that we would do exactly what we're doing now, which is to extend beyond what they say and then talk about the overall principles involved. That's how we learn. So ingredients. Well, certainly good ingredients, fresh ingredients are essential for fine cuisine. They can serve as the basis for tasty and healthy meals. So ingredients can be just as important in the art of living, the Tao of living. Ingredients, we can see that as resources to gather for our plans, or people that we work with. For instance, the people in a team or in a group, in a community, they are the ingredients that we have to work with when we need to work with other people for a particular objective. And here I've got some personalities clash, some work well together. Well, you know, in cooking, there are ingredients that just, for some reason, go really well together. The tastes complement one another. You put them together, you create something that's special, that's more than just the sum of their parts. It can be the same with the ingredients in life or the resources in life, which can be things, it can be people, it can be monetary assets, it can be a whole bunch of different things. But some of them definitely have a complementary effect. Lastly, let's talk about seasoning. In fine cuisine, you know that if it's too little, it can be bland, tasteless. You're not going to have a successful meal that way. If it's too much, it's too spicy, too salty, too sweet, too sour, too bitter. It's inedible. So here I come right back to tie back to the moderation principle we were talking about at the earlier level. What about life? Moderation also? Sure. Variety is the spice of life. And you want just the right amount. We can take this in a whole bunch of different directions. I might, for instance, go with salt. Adding salt, you want just the right amount. Too little, there's not a whole lot of taste. Too much, you can't even swallow it. And you can apply that to life in terms of the hardship that we go through, the suffering that we go through. As an example, you can compare that to salt. How so? Well, think about how when we train ourselves to be better, to be more fit, to be stronger, faster, when we train ourselves, that training is not easy, it's not comfortable, it's not pleasant, it's hardship. We can be gasping for breath. We can be experiencing muscle fatigue, exertion failure, etc. It can be suffering. And yet, when the training pays off, it's like when they say, cry in the dojo, laugh on the battlefield. You can be having a good time with the expanded strength or capabilities that came as a result of the training. So just the right amount will be good. Too little, you're not strong enough. Too much, you overtrain and injure yourself. So there are so many different ways that we can apply from one column to the next. Now, this is really the greatest point of all, and that is the ancient sages never wanted to categorize or limit people into a particular example. They always wanted to use a metaphor that was basic and easy for everyone to understand. Cooking a small fish is just one example. It didn't mean that Lao Tzu was a fan of seafood. It just meant that he wanted to convey the importance of moderation, balance, equilibrium. All of those concepts can be easily conveyed with that one example. How do we know that this is what he meant? Well, it turns out all the other sages throughout history have used the same methods to explain Tao concepts. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us all travel safely so we can meet again. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.